Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to your Investment Dominator live Q&A webinar. And I am your facilitator for this evening. I'm Warren Davis, and we are so glad that there are many of you on the call right now. We're looking for several more to join. Hey, there's Arkansas. Thank you, Brian. We're gonna do a quick sound check. Brian has already started us off here saying he can hear us and he can see us. He can see my Investment Dominator screen in Arkansas. So those of you that are familiar with how to put in your questions and either raise your hand. I guess you probably found out by now that raising your hand may not exactly always get my attention right away, but at least your questions popping up. Very good. And we see Vamsey's on the line. Excellent. We are here to support you in your respective businesses. We want to address any and all questions that we can as they relate to the Investment Dominator. So those of you that may be new, because we did have a lot of hands this weekend. We were in the live Jack Bosch conference, and we had a great time. We're a little tired in our bodies from the traveling and from the getting back and forth and moving things around, but it was great. It was a fantastic conference and a fantastic weekend, and it's always inspiring. We did get back today, and just so that those of you that may be new out there can be encouraged, we had I think it was an email notification that came through that they accepted an offer request on one of our properties. And that's always, it seems like something really steps up whenever we go to one of those 3-day Jack Bosch live events. So we want to encourage you to come out to those whenever you can. We're going to have a little bit of a different format. We're going to take questions today. One of the first, before we get into actually taking your questions, again, hoping everybody can see. Well, thank you, Lisa and Vamsey. Thank you. We were very happy about that. Anytime you get back and you have some good news in your mailbox or in your email box, it's always fantastic, especially when it relates to this land. We want to just ask and request something of you today as you're asking and sending in your questions. Thank you, Rhonda. We appreciate that. We had a good time. We did get inducted into the Hall of Fame this past weekend, and that was I tell you, that was one of the most rewarding feelings that I think I've ever experienced, at least in many, many, many years, and definitely the only one I've experienced with any organization that I'm working with. So we're excited and want you to be encouraged. This business does work, and it's just a matter of you working the business. You see on my screen right now, I hope everybody can see, I'm gonna ask for a little help when it comes to entering your questions. We have a question category, and if you could help me out by doing this, I'm looking at some of your comments over here. That's so nice, Lisa. You the man, I like comments like that. And trust me, in my line of work, in my day-to-day, I don't get those kind of comments too often. So that does my heart proud. Thank you so much. I was very humbled and appreciated. My wife and I were very, very, very appreciative of this past weekend and just all the love that we experienced. But in any case, back to this question category here. We're going to ask if you could have like something. This is just a one word that says, hey, we're talking about offers. The question that's coming is about offers. And then you can have a little colon or there, and then go on and state your question. Because what I get a lot of times is when I appreciate the extra information. Don't get me wrong, I like having the extra information. I read through a little bit of it before I get to the actual question that you might be asking. And if I had an idea of what the category is, like if we're talking about offers or we're talking about Pat Live. That will help me when I'm on, especially on the air and we're talking. I can get an idea. It kind of helps my brain get wrapped around what this question is going to be about and what area we're going to be going to. So it helped me be a little bit more efficient in answering all of your questions. So I'm going to make that request of you. If you can, it would really be greatly appreciated. Okay. So we're going to get right in. we're going to get right into answering some of the questions, and I see some of them have already started to come in. And as I said, today will be a little bit different because of our 3-day event that we just came from. Now, I'm always going to answer these questions that come in. No matter what, I will, if I can't get them answered on this particular call, I'll get them answered on another call, or by the next call, I should say. And we'll get your answers for you. If you listen to the next call or the recording of the call, you will be able to see all of your questions answered, along with, and I hope you all have been noticing, I put a timestamp on each question right after the question so that you know that's where that particular question starts in the recording. So you're able to go, if it's 10 minutes, it'll be 10.00, and you can go 10 minutes into that recording, and you can go right to where that question is being asked. That's what I review all of these recordings each week and put the timestamps on them so that they're easy for you to find your answers. So rounded to the 7th digit, I don't know about that one. but we'll round them. We'll get them as close to, like, 10.25 would be 10 minutes and 25 seconds into the call. You can get that particular question addressed. So someone's asking me right now, one of the questions that's being asked right away with regards to the recordings. I think Lisa's asking, where do we find these recordings? That's a good question, and that's a good question for everybody, to find recordings. Now, just to let you know also, as I answer this question, we're going to be having a lot of new people join. A lot of you may not have been at the live event, but if we had a lot of brand new hands go up and people joined us for the very first time. So on these calls, we'll be having a lot more brand new people that have just like 1 or 2 weeks into the business. So if you want to find these calls, these recorded calls, you go to help. That will be the first click that you make once you log on. And I'm just going to note that that was okay, 7 minutes into this call. So this is where you would go and you see weekly live Q&A training calls. You just select that category. So that's after you hit help, select weekly live training calls. And if you're registering, obviously you would click one of these to register for the Monday or the Thursday calls. But you click here and you can list, it will list all of the calls and the specific date of that training call. And as you click on that, you'll see, just for an example, you'll see how we, the questions that we addressed on that call, and this one was 5 minutes into the call. Addressed the second question, how to handle owner name on land records when the caller name is entered. That's 9:15, 9 minutes and 15 seconds into the call. We put that on every single week so that you can easily find the call. Now that's one way to find the live training calls. The other way is, just in case you might be, let's see here, let me go back and hit help again. Hope everybody can see my screen okay. You can search your user guide. And you can just put in live training. Just give me a quick yes. Everybody is seeing my Investment Dominator, like quick start session 2. You're all seeing that. Okay, good. Thank you, Brian. Okay, so you can also type in search user guide, and you can type in live training. And when you search that, that will also bring you up to show you all of the live trainings that we've had. So that's 2 different ways that you can access these particular training calls. Hope that answers that question and gives you a little help there. Because we do record all of these calls for your benefit. I want you to be able to go back and review anything that we have covered in a previous session. So we're going to start with Edith's question. Edith has a question regarding One, and she has is a short question. It has to do with the ampersand, and her question is when she exports a record. Now, this particular question came from last Thursday. We didn't get a chance to answer it on that call, so we're answering it today, just so that you know. We wanted to get to those questions first, and then I'm going to take specific questions we had over the weekend. That's what I was instructed to do today, because a lot of individuals had the same types of questions, and Alex and I were running back and forth between, going back and forth between different ones. And as we sat down and talked, and we pulled our, the questions that we were getting, we found that, different ones were asking the same question. So Alex was answering it, and I was answering it, and we also want to make sure that we're answering it the same way, so there's no confusion. Okay. So Edith's question from last Thursday was when she exports a record, the .csv, if it has an ampersand in the file anywhere in that data, and she speaks mostly, she's talking about the legal description, even having an ampersand. She's saying that it results in various columns being created rather than that one record remaining one, contiguous record. And I'll show you exactly an example of that, what we're talking about. That should not be happening. And just so that Edith knows, I went back and I tried to recreate this issue in Investment Dominator several different ways, and I was not able to recreate it. And if you can remember, the last time I shared with you all, if there's something I cannot create, I would appreciate it if you go to help and create a support ticket. Create a new support ticket and describe that issue in this new support ticket. Now, in this particular instance, my background in IT is telling me from just the way that this particular issue is unfolding, I don't think it has anything to do with Investment Dominator. This could have something to do with the type of computer Edith is on and or the browser that she's using. I typically use Google Chrome. I know various ones of you use different browsers, and I don't try to do this on my iPhone. I don't try to do it on an iPad because results can be sketchy. They can be, varied. I'm using a desktop computer or I use a laptop computer whenever I access Investment Dominator. So what Edith is referring to here is, let's say if we take, let's take this record here, George Holman, and we come down and we can see in his legal description, the legal description field, there's an ampersand in one of the locations within that field. So Edith was saying, as she exports this particular record, or a record like this, let's go up here and let's just go on and export this, and we'll show you what it should look like. I haven't been able to duplicate what she said that she was finding. As you can see, the legal description over here. Okay. Stretch that out. Legal description is showing here in this field, and the ampersand is right here, as she had pointed out. But she was saying that there's, she's saying she might be referring to the fact that there's extra columns, but this is because she's exporting this particular file. And I'm going to explain a little bit more of that. But it seems like she was saying that this record wasn't one straight record, as you see here, but it was causing maybe this data to be ending up on different columns. And I haven't been able to get that to do that. This is showing up, as one record, record number 2. And so that's the way it should export. All of your records should export like that. And if they're not, it could have something to do with your actual hardware, or, as I say, the browser that you may be using, okay? So just want you to to be aware of that. I very seldom, export single records, but yeah, you should be able to do that with no problem at all. So that's question back to Edith. Hopefully that will help her at least get some clarity on exactly what might be happening with her exports. Okay, we had a very interesting question. Now, these questions I'm going to answer now that I'm going to address, these came from the weekend, and several individuals asking the same question. So this first one I'm going to take here has to do with one of the coaches in their presentation as they got up and spoke. They mentioned that they had emails that were being put into Investment Dominator. So the question came up several times, can we somehow import or can we somehow bring emails from our email system, whatever email system we're using, can we bring them into Investment Dominator? The answer to that question is no. There is no way to take like your Outlook email and integrate it into Investment Dominator so that you could take a whole bunch of emails and have them brought into Investment Dominator and put into some status like pending preliminary research or mail letter 1. We don't have that capability. So as I talked with this coach, I found out that they are referring to, they have a VA, actually, a virtual assistant that takes their emails that they get responses from people that say, hey, I want an offer on my property. Rather than using Pat Live, the Pat Live system that we use for all of our neutral letters that go, when they go out to our prospective prospects, they call our Pat Live number, and a Pat Live representative answers the phone. So what I found out is this coach does not use Pat Live. They actually have on their offer letter, or excuse me, not their offer letter, but their neutral letter, they have an email address as opposed to having a Pat Live number and the web address. So I'll just give you an example of what I mean here. So let's see, I need a prospect. So I'm going to look for here, David is a prospect. If I now generate my documents and I generate an offer, well, I had two selected, but that's okay. It'll give me the same, basically. What Natasha was talking about when she asked this question about what the coach said, the coach was saying right here, it says, please call us at this 555 number. Okay, on our particular neutral letter, that's the Pat Live number that individuals are calling, okay? Instead of it being, call, it would be like she changed the neutral letter to say, please email us at, and she put an email address here instead of the phone number you see here, so that individuals will email letting her know, hey, I'm interested in getting an offer on, possibly selling my property, and I would like, I know you're interested in buying my property, so they're going to send her an email. That's the difference between what the coach says, the way the coach is using the system, and the way we use the system, or my particular business. What I do, I think I showed this a while back, but I have a Pat Live representative. If I go up and I look at my team, I have defined a representative for Pat Live, and it's called Pat Live. This is the username, Pat Live Rep 01. Again, the way you would do that is just simply add user, and it would default to an admin, but you want to make them a rep status. So you make them a rep status, you put in first name, last name, and for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is just edit one so you can see what those fields are, okay? So I put their representative, Pat Live rep, and here's an email address, number, what state they're in, and then I give them a username, I set them up with a specific password, And I say, hey, no, they are not allowed to delete anything. They're not allowed to merge. They can edit property, delete contact, no. They can edit a contact. So I decide what their permissions are, what they're permissible to do, and I set up my user. That particular coach doesn't use this. They use an email for their particular neutral letters. And so there was a little confusion there because individuals were thinking that we could somehow email into Investment Dominator. And just want to make that clear that that cannot be done. Okay, so just wanted to clear that up. That was from the weekend where we got quite a few questions on that. See if there's any additional. Now, if anybody has any questions on the Pat Live, I'm going to cover that in a little more detail. But that particular aspect, I hope that's clear with everybody. That you can't email into Investment Dominator. So we had a question from specifically from a young lady named Della, but we had this question several times, and it's a pretty important question because it has to do with importing data into Investment Dominator. And I guess the best way for me to really illustrate this so that everybody understands, we're going to go back here, we're going to search our user guide, and we'll just look up how to import. Because we got a lot of questions around importing. And of course, it brings you up several articles on how to import your list, or you can import your list for land, or this is for house. Obviously, we're going to do vacant land. But you can see there are various articles on how you can split a large county list. I may refer back to that one shortly. But how to import your list for land investing. Simple article. It comes in and just shows you how you go to land deals, and then you press import. And what I really want to point out here is this file, these required fields in a .csv file. Now, a lot of the brand new people are thinking that a .csv is all that's really required, and that is not. That's very, very far from the truth. You do need a .csv, but these field names, type, it needs to be just like you see it here. Capital TYPE. First name needs to be spelled just like you see it here. Capital FIRST space capital NAME. These fields need to be exact for Investment Dominator to recognize them when you do your imports. And individuals are still having these fields be wrong, and so it's messing up their data, and it's causing Investment Dominator to throw out records that should be accepted. So the first thing is you do need a .csv file, but you need to have these fields exactly as specified here. Notice the ones in red and the ones in orange. It has, are they required? Yes, this has been another error. These are the required fields. There's 11 of them, and these fields are required for Investment Dominator to be able to process your imports into the system. So the two things you need, these 11 fields: first name, last name, well, first type, first name, last name, company if you have a company, but even if you don't have a company, you should still have that field being imported, even though it's going to be blank. Address, city, state, zip, APN, county, state. And I know we've gone over this, and so for some of you that are saying, oh, okay, I know that, Warren, I got it, but there are still individuals that are missing this, and there's quite a few of you on the call right now, so I'm thinking I might be hitting some of those that are actually that might have been missing that. So that's two requirements. The next thing that we're seeing is there's extra spaces after these column names. Like there'll be first name, you'll have the first name correct, but then there'll be spaces in Excel after the first name field. There'll be spaces after last name column. Well, when Investment Dominator processes this particular field, it's looking for first name and that's it. Any spaces, it creates a different name for Investment Dominator. So any spaces after, it will get confused and it will probably drop that import because to Investment Dominator, that's not a valid name. Last name, same thing. Have to make sure within Excel that you only, if it's a company, you only say COMPANY. That's it, no spaces. So that's another error that we've been seeing as people are importing their data and their data is not being, some of those records are being kicked out. There can be no optional fields. There can be no extra fields. So what we've given here, I'm going to go down a little further here. These are the 11 required fields, as I've already forestated. This is in your article, but you have type, first name, last name, company, etc. These 11 fields are required. These other 25 fields down here, as you can see, are optional. These are all optional. So you don't have to enter them. But, oh, and as it's stated down here in red, your import file cannot include additional fields beyond these 11 and the 25 optional fields. So if you put a field after tags or after anywhere else or any optional field saying school or park or whatever, Investment Dominator is not going to be able to process that record because it can't process that field. It's not a valid field entry, and the system is looking for these specific fields spelled a specific way. And so we want to make sure that you don't mess up your imports by adding any additional fields. That's another issue that we've been seeing. We've also been seeing fields or imports come in where there's a record that has all the required fields, and then the next record right after that is completely blank. So any of those blank rows, they're not going to be processed correctly. So that has been another issue that we've been seeing. So far, the issues I'm saying is, .csv is required, no extra spaces after any of the fields. All right. Oh, and another thing that I got quite a few questions over the weekend regarding, okay, if it's an individual, okay, if we're talking about an individual record, first name, last name are definitely always required. If it's an individual, first name and last name always required. If it's company that we're talking about, if it's a company record, so the type is company, you don't need a first name or last name. The names of the individuals are irrelevant, but you do need a company name. See, and we're seeing imports coming in where people are saying, well, how come my import is messing up? Well, you're trying to import a company record. So there's in this first field type, it's company, but there's no company name. So that is also going to mess up your import. So how do we make sure that let's see, I just want to type down, let's see, company. So we're talking about importing here. All right. These are just some requirements so that you can properly input your imports and that they will be processed by Investment Dominator. The last thing we've been saying, and we got a few questions on over the weekend, had to do with how to properly format APNs or zip code values. And it really would take me a little while to go into that. I'm going to just, let's see, properly format APNs and zip code values in Excel. There's an article, and I would encourage you to read that. So this is how to properly format APNs and zip code values in Excel. It's basically talking to you about the format for a zip code, the format for an APN, so that Investment Dominator doesn't throw them out. So it says here, Excel removes leading zeros from my zip code data when I export to CSV. How do I fix that? All right, you got to make sure, first of all, it's in the right field. So it's got to be in the zip code, because if it's in the zip code field, Investment Dominator will be able to adequately process that zip code. A lot of people have been getting that pretty much correct, but we have noticed that a few people are not formatting their zip codes and their APNs properly. So again, I can't take more time. We've taken quite a bit of time on this question. So we're gonna move on here to another question that we got over the weekend several different times, which has also to do with formatting. And this one is 1530 and splitting large. I'm going to go real kind of fast through this one because a lot of you are brand new, and I don't think you have this issue, but we're talking about how to split large files, large lists, I should say, into smaller mailing lists. And what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to refer you to the user guide and how to split. I think we saw this in one of our other searches. So this just talks about how to split large county lists into smaller lists or campaigns so that you can import into the CRM. And actually, what this is really trying to do here, if we look at I'm going to look at it real quickly. There's a macro that would be within Investment Dominator. And again, a lot of you aren't even at this place where you're having lists that are like, coming in, importing 8,000 or 10,000 records at a time, or even 1,000 records at a time, I should say. But the only thing you would change would be the split count here. This is saying it's set at 100, which means once you have those records into Investment Dominator, you could split them out into smaller subsets of that large group. And I'm going to go through this fast because not too many of you are in this category at this time, but you will be. You can say I want my account to be 100 records in one file. Then I want the next list to have another 100 records. So you might import 800 records, but each record would have just 100 records in it at a time. And Investment Dominator will split it out for you, and we'll call the first list number 1, and it'll have 100 records. List number 2, Investment Dominator will take care of that. So just when you get to that point, I'll call your attention to this user guide here, and we're going to go on to another issue that we're having with importing. Importing or exporting. Actually, this one has to do with exporting. No, it still has to do with importing, excuse me, because the question is when I import or export a list and I want to import the same list, why are the fields not the same? And let me show you an example. It's best to just go on and show you what it looks like. So we were to export this particular record. When I opened it before, just like I did the last time, you notice you have all of these additional fields. You have a lot of fields here. You have P price, what is that, option. So there are a lot more fields when you export than when you import. So I've exported this one. If I go back and let's just do an import, I'll go on and import. I'm just going to show you the sample list, which has the fields that would be imported. Okay. So here are the fields that would be imported. And you can see the format's a little different. That's my import list. And here's my export list. And you can see both of these lists look a little differently from one another. Okay, the reason for that is that fields being exported, this was because the exporting feature is for like formatting mailing lists. This is for individuals that want to do this on their own. They want to, they're not going to use a feature like letternetprinting.net to send out all of their neutral letters. They're going to be formatting large mailing lists. They're going to be doing large mailing merges. It's for people who want to process these records on their own. These are the ones that would use the exporting feature. Now, those that are using like letternet printing, like myself, I use letternetprinting.net. I want to import my records into the Investment Dominator, and I want them in this particular order so that Investment Dominator can handle them, and then I want to send them out to letternet printing. So this first feature that exporting records, these are two different business processes. In this business process, I'm not using letternet printing. I'm doing this all on my own. With the other feature, I'm using letternet printing, and I'm needing assistance in getting out all of my records. So that's the reason the fields are different in your import list than they are in your export list. And again, those of you that are opting to use, letternet printing, you would want to be aware of this. But this has come up and it has confused some individuals because they're thinking that Investment Dominator is somehow messing up their data because there is all these different fields. I was trying to look at a field here that might give us, let's see, a little bit more insight. But basically, that is what I wanted to make sure we understood. Don't see the, yeah, you can see there's a lot of fields on this export. And I was looking for specifically a name field because they're, with the export, there's different aspects of the name rather than just first name and last name. I think there's other variations to the name alone. And when you're dealing with an import, we only have, as you can see, first name and last name. There's no variations to that. So in any case, that's a long explanation, but that's why there's going to be a difference between your export and your import fields. And you'll need to be aware of that as you move forward. Okay, all right, so if we have no questions on that to this point, we're going to move on. Just so that you know, in Investment Dominator, this importing your list, there have been various individuals that have been asking, let's see, okay, various individuals asking, why this has changed. You have this step 2 in here now. It has step 1, shows you your sample list. Step 2, you can create new records. I haven't personally used this yet. I'm familiar with it. If you wanted to create some new records, and you read here, it says selecting the create new records option will create unique owner and property records in the system from the data in your import file. And the system determines if an owner is unique or not based on the address, city, state, zip, data combinations, etc. It determines if a property is unique or not based on the APN. And Investment Dominator, that's what I love about this system. It will make sure you don't have duplicate records. It'll have only your unique new records. And here, obviously, you would upload your CSV file. And it's recommending that when you bring these records in, that they come into prospect status, which they should be in prospect status. And you can also update records coming into the system by selecting the update existing records option. If the system finds a matching property record that is already in the system, based on the APM state, etc., it will update the owner's contact information for that record, as well as append any new property information. So this is a new function that was added in 2019 to allow you to create new records or update existing records from the CSV file that you update into Investment Dominator. I simply use this, I choose this file and I choose my file that I want to update, or excuse me, I choose my file that I want to import and I bring it into Investment Dominator. Again, my files are based on this sample list. This is the order that I always bring them in. These are the fields. I have them just like they show here. And I keep it as simple as possible and add no different fields. And this is the format I bring it into Investment Dominator. So when I choose one of these files, I simply upload the list and I go back and they should show as prospects, all of my, prospects from everything that all the records that I brought in. I just want to call your attention to the fact that that's a new feature since 2019 that we updated, and we got a few questions on specifically, what was this section of this second step here for, and did we have to worry about that? You don't have to worry about that if you're just importing a straightforward list into Investment Dominator. That's not should be no hassle to you. Okay, I think we're moving along here. Another question we received this weekend, which is not really importing records. Okay, another question we got, which is really not an Investment Dominator question per se, but it's a business question around the Investment Dominator. And so I was asked to address it on this call. How a call center like PatLive processes an offer request. This is an Investment Dominator kind of related question, but it has more to do with your business process. And again, remember, I use, of course, this is our demo account, but I use, on my team, I have a PatLive representative. And it makes my life a lot easier having them take the calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. So when they process an offer request, it's more like what script should they use? And what I was asked to bring out here on this particular call is the fact that the minutes that the PatLive operator uses cost you money. So you really want to monitor that. And you really want to look at your bill. Once you get a bill from PatLive with so many calls that you're paying for, you want to look at the minutes, and they are supposed to send this along with your bill, or you can, if they don't have it with your bill, you can ask for it on your bill, so that you can know how long these PatLive representatives are spending on the phone. So you need to get a copy of your bill and see that, because I know for our particular business, we were looking at calls that were lasting anywhere from 8 minutes. I think some were 10 minutes, and that's way too long for a PatLive question, for PatLive rep to be on the phone. So a lot of times we find that students expect PatLive to know about land investing. And PatLive is just like any other company. They're doing us a service. They understand about real estate investing, but it's a real estate investing service company. And their individuals need to be trained just like you would if you had a rep working for you in your day-to-day business. They would have to be trained. I want you to also keep in mind, as business owners, that there's a lot of turnover that takes place within PatLive organization. These are people that basically answer the phones all day. And so A lot of them are young people. Some of them want to, do the work, and some of them, decide, hey, I don't want to do this, and they move on down the road. Well, Pat Live now has to train a new person to take calls. There's supposed to be a dedicated team because they know about Jack. There's a dedicated team that works with Jack's people to answer their calls and answer them efficiently, but they sometimes need to be trained. And just like if you had someone working for you, you would have to train them. So we're business owners, and they're providing, helping provide customer care for us. So we need to manage them as business owners. Just want to put this in your space so that you understand. You need to manage them. So occasionally, if I want to check out Pat Live, what I might think about doing is putting a dummy record with my name in there, my address, and my phone number, or my information. And I want to see, when I call Pat Live, I basically want to see how I'm treated on the phone. Some very bad scenarios that we've been hearing from our students that may be coming up that you might be dealing with. You want to make sure they don't place you on hold for a long time. So when I call Pat Live and the rep answers the phone, first of all, they should answer with my company name. Our company name is WM Agape LLC. And I want the rep to answer the phone. Hello, this is WM Agape LLC. How can I help you? And they shouldn't put me on hold for a long period of time. So if you look at some of your calls and they're coming back, 8 and 10 minutes, if you call them yourself, you might find out that they're putting you on hold. They shouldn't be chit-chatting, with the customers on the phone, about the weather and the, cars and clothes and whatever. They should be going right to business, asking the question. Make sure that when the rep answers the phone, Pat Live rep, that they're not fumbling around with paperwork, and that they're able to go right to your record quickly, and you can time them to see how well are they, how fast are they at pulling up your record. And as we go back to our land deals here, if I bring up a record here and I say I want, new offer request, all right. One of the first things, well, let's see. Make sure I bring up this. Okay, thank you for calling us regarding your property. Before we can present you with an offer, I'd like to ask you some questions. Are you the property owner? One of the first things I want them to ask, though, which I'm not seeing that on my particular, let me see. Not seeing what the very first question I want them to ask is about the reference ID. And got to find out, why am I not seeing that here when I pull that up? But one of the very first questions that they should be asking is, do you have your reference ID, which I would expect them, this record number here, number 54, that appears on their letter and appears on their envelope. I want to make sure that they have that record number, and I want to sure they verify that, hey, this is Mr. Davis calling, and that they can go to the record quickly. And if you call Pat Live and they are not able to do that, it takes them a while to get around to that. That could be a reason why your phone, the phone times are 8 minutes, 10 minutes long. And it's just a way of checking them out. And I noticed that with our business, once we call them on a couple of the calls and we said, hey, our bill is showing, your rep is spending 8 and 10 minutes on a call. That's too long. Our script is not that long. Shouldn't take them more than, just so you know, make sure you might should write this down. 2.5 minutes to 4 minutes is as long as they should be. I'm gonna try, let's see this way. Okay, this is what I wanted to see. Okay, so I was going to a specific record, and that's correct. This is, what's the reference number found at the bottom right corner of the envelope that we sent you? And they should say, yes, I have it, or no, I don't have it. So if they have it, obviously we want that number to be entered here. So I should be up here in the what we call the bulk new offer request instead of down here in the select specific offer. But in any case, back to what I was saying, you want to make sure that you're tracking 2.5 minutes to 4 minutes for a specific Pat Live call. And if your bill is showing several calls more than that, you're paying for that time. So you also want to make sure that they're using the wizard when they come in here, that they're coming into the new offer request wizard, and that they're going through this particular process, because these are the questions they should be asking. Okay, so hopefully that will clear up some answers. And once you track them a couple of times and they realize that you're watching as a customer, we found that Pat Live they'll assign people to our specific accounts that are a little bit more seasoned and that know how to handle, land deals specifically. They won't just give you the newbie that just started with Pat Live like a few weeks ago. Okay, so this is just some insight for you. We were getting a lot of questions around Pat Live representatives and how to handle them, so how to manage them. So I hope that gives you a little bit more context in how you can be responsible with Pat Live. And finally, let's see. We had a question here from Gidget on does the system importing and updating records, does the system highlight the records that were changed or updated? When you import records and you update records, system doesn't highlight those records. Again, when we're importing records here, Gidget, that's a good question. Importing records. When we are importing records, remember we're doing this based on a status. Again, if you go back here and look, I'm up here in basically what we call the bulk update. These are the bulk updates. These are your individual selections down here. These selections here are for individual selections that you make in your data. When we import, I'm importing a lot of records on a bulk basis. So this is it's not going to highlight any of the records that were changed or updated. What it will do though, if I were to choose a file and if I've already imported this record, let's say, and I upload this list, a lot of times it will give me, the new owners added were 8, existing owners, so it'll give me a kind of a count of records that existed. It'll give me what was actually added to my file, and if there were some records that were incorrectly formatted, I would see another line here that would say, these records were basically kicked out. So it doesn't necessarily highlight the records that are changed or updated, but it gives you kind of a count of those records that were highlighted or updated. And you should be able to see, and then you go back and look at the records, because it gives you the specific record numbers of those. If you have a record numbers that were kicked out and that were not able to be imported, Investment Dominator would give you a count of those records and their specific line numbers that were bad. So you could go back into your import. If I wanted to go back into my import file, let's see, any of the records, let's see, I'll bring them up here so you can see. Okay, demo data files, there they are, imported records. Let's look at some of these records. So if I attempted to import these records and some of them had, you know, let's say I can say individual here, but I didn't put a first or a last name, and I have a address here. Let's change the address a little bit. Okay. And basically trying to make sure I mess this record up a little bit. Okay. These actually have property addresses, well, which we won't put one on there. Zip, we can leave that the same, and APN, we'll have to make that a different APN. Something like that. So now if I import, this particular file in my Investment Dominator, and choose that file, 2, 3, and 4. I think this was the one with the bad data in there. Upload that list. Okay, it says existing properties 10, properties added 0. So those are kind of existing properties. I was expecting to get an actual bad record, but what I'm trying to show you is I was trying to show you didn't import any of my records because they were probably already all there. Let's see. Well, you get my point. If a record is bad in Investment Dominator, it will list it on another line here. So you can say basically these records are not were not imported correctly. So hope that answers your question there, Gidget. That's about the best that we can do here with this one. It's not going to highlight any of your records for you. So, oh, okay. We got a question from Don. Might be able to get into that just a little bit, Don, with regards to importing records. You're having trouble importing your data through Agent Pro, which is costing me hours of time trying to figure the data to input. I completely understand that. Don, I don't know exactly what kind of errors you're getting back, but I will say this. We started out looking at Agent Pro, and I'm definitely not putting down Agent Pro because I think it helps a lot of people to get started by allowing them to have data come in, and they can kind of go through the process of, you know, sending records, sending their neutral letters out, getting them, you know, responses back from the people, putting in offers, etc. But when we really wanted to process a lot of records, we actually went directly to the county and we pulled our records from the county. The first time, my wife and I spent, you know, a few days massaging that data in Excel, getting it into the format that Investment Dominator can handle. We don't do that anymore. What we do now is we enlist a virtual assistant, and there's a really good one. I don't have her email address, but she's really, really good. And she'll take a county list with thousands and thousands and thousands of records, and she'll put it in the right format for you so that you can import it, you know, like 500 records at a time or 400 records at a time each week, and you can input it into Investment Dominator and kind of bypass, you know, dealing with Agent Pro altogether. And she did thousands of records for us for like right around $50. So $50 we got thousands. I'm talking about maybe 30, 35,000 records from a county, as opposed to spending 3 or 4 days massaging the data and going into, you know, working, you know, even the price for Agent Pro that it would cost us, you know, saved us just, I mean, money, it saves us time and effort. So I would have to look at, in order to really answer your question, Don, the kind of errors that you're getting, using Agent Pro. We started looking at that initially, as I stated, and we just elected to go directly to the county. And I do understand, I can feel your pain that it's costing you hours of time and you're trying to figure out the type of data to input. And I'm sorry that you're dealing with that. That's just the cost of dealing with Agent Pro. So this is about as far as we're going to be able to get today, people. Do appreciate your questions. We will get those questions answered regarding Sunnyland. For our next call, you'll be able to look for that on the next call. Hopefully look for this output on this particular call either today, probably more like the next couple of days. We'll have it there for you. Just want to leave you with this thought about courage, because all of you are very courageous people. The path from dreams to success does in fact exist. May you have the vision to find it, the courage to get on it, and the perseverance to follow it. And that's from a philosopher, Kalpana Chawla. So the path from dreams to success does exist, and I want you to have the vision to find it, the courage to get on it, and the perseverance to follow it. Thank you so much, folks, for being on the call. We appreciate your input and want you to have a great remainder of the night, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully on Thursday at 12 noon. Take care, everybody.